It is time. It is a Dynasty rookie profile. Today we are looking at wide receiver out of Arizona, Tet McMillan. As always, if you like Dynasty content, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 1,100 subscribers. Also join our Discord. Link is in the description of this video. It's free, and you can get in there. You can answer questions. We're building up a bit of a community there. We go live, and we'll be doing some Dynasty rookie mock drafts that we'd like to get you guys on there. And the best way to know when we go live is, of course, to join the Discord and subscribe. And also, we're going to be putting together some listener leagues. So make sure to get in there, and you can play in some Dynasty leagues with us that we will start up this offseason. Like I said, it's our first Dynasty rookie profile. I'm excited. It's January 22nd. And from now until the NFL draft, we're going to be putting out these rookie profiles where we kind of dive deep into these prospects. And from now until the NFL draft, it's going to be more of the well-known guys like a Tet McMillan. Once the NFL draft happens, we do shift our focus a little bit to more of these Dynasty deep stashes, guys that we didn't really recruit because they, we didn't know they were going to get drafted, or they got drafted later on in the draft. So just be on the lookout for all of those. And what we're looking at here is, we're kind of looking at the raw stats, the analytical stats, as well as my analysis from watching film on these guys. I watch at least 2 to 3 games and probably more once we get further along in the offseason of these guys, and I kind of give my opinion on that. So Tet McMillan, interesting prospect here. We all kind of know that. I don't want to say he's consensus wide receiver 1, but he is wide receiver 1 for most people. It's basically between him and Luther Burden, but there are some people out there that like Luther Burden more, which is fine. I like Luther Burden as well, and I like Tet McMillan as well. He's an interesting receiver because he's 6'5", 212. He's a little bit more kind of in that old school mold, although for being 6'5", only and being only 212, he is a little bit more slender, which kind of the old school X receiver on the outside that I think of as like 6'5", 220, 225. Tet McMillan is not that, and interesting enough, and I'll get into it when I break down the film, to me, he doesn't really play like an outside kind of X receiver, which is probably a good thing. But let's get into some of the raw stats. You see there in 2024, 84 catches, over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns, so highly, highly productive. And you see here in the Dominator stuff here. Now, what is Dominator? You're going to be seeing this in all of these videos. What is Dominator? For a wide receiver is what percentage of your team's passing production did you account for, right? And so in his 3-year career at Arizona, Tet McMillan from year 1 as a freshman was very, very productive. Over his 3 years at Arizona, he accounted for 34% of Arizona's passing production. That's really damn good. We want to see this number north of 20, north of 25, north of 30 is like elite kind of stuff, elite production. And one of the common denominators when it comes to wide receivers that hit in the NFL, that hit for fantasy, you could throw out all these speed, size, strength, all this other stuff, analytical stuff. The most common denominator to me is production. Like, you have to have production in college. And that seems pretty obvious, right? But there are guys that do go, and like Kadarius Toney was never productive in college. So, we see elite production from Tet McMillan, and his single season high at 44%, which was, I believe, in 2024, this last year, he accounted for 44% of Arizona's passing offense. It went through Tet McMillan, which is pretty insane in my opinion. And his breakout age is the age of 19. Breakout age is the first year that you put up 20% or more of your Dominator was 20% or higher in a season. He did it as a freshman with 39 catches, 700 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He broke out at the age of 19, which is what we'd like to see. We like to see 18, 19-year-olds dominating from college, because usually that means you're kind of special. Not always, but usually. Some of the analytical stuff here, you can see here. I'm not going to necessarily go through all and every single one of them, but all pretty good. The yards per route run is a little bit low, I would say. We kind of like to see this north of 3, but he's close. He's close to there, 2.87. Kind of actually one of the better ones in this draft. There's not a lot of huge yards per route run numbers And again, there's no one number that's going to tell you this guy's going to be good or not, right? That's kind of the beauty of the NFL, really, in my opinion, or football in general. But 2.87 is fine. The drop rate is good. The A dot is kind of where you want to see it. You don't want to see it too low. You don't want to see it too high. You kind of want to see it in that 12 to 14 range. Contested catch percentage at 50%, which again, if you are going to be this kind of big body and play on the outside a lot, you definitely need to make contested catches. It's good to see him making half of his contested targets. Contested target percentage. Now, what is this? This one is really, really important to me. I'm kind of valuing this number more and more and seeing how it translates to fantasy success. This is basically what percentage of your targets were contested. And why I think that's important, because this is over the course of his entire college career, by the way. 25% of his targets of his 3 years at Arizona were contested. And why is this important? Because I think over the span of a career, over the span of a season, this kind of shows you how much separation the receivers are getting. There's other factors that lead into it, the types of targets you're getting, the quarterback you're playing with, all of that. But over the course of an entire career, especially a 3-year career, it usually comes down to majority of like, are you creating separation? And to me, creating separation is probably the most important thing that I look for is, does this receiver know how to get open? Now, where do we like to see this number? We like to see this number under 20%. And really, our kind of the antenna goes up when we see this under 15%. Just to throw out some guys who had a contested target percentage 15% or lower last year that played in a lot of games. Ladd McConkey at 12%. Xavier Worthy at 13%. Roman Wilson didn't play. Ricky Pearsall was 6%. Jalen McMillan, 10%. So, a lot of the guys that played a lot and had a low contested target percentage produced in the NFL last year. The guys that had a high one, Marvin Harrison, 25%, kind of had a rough season. Keon Coleman, 26%, had a rough season. Jalen Polk at 22% had a rough season. So this is an interesting number here. It's a little bit higher than I'd like. That being said, how do you make up for that? Well, you make contested catches, right, at a 50% rate. But I guess my logic here is, if you don't separate in college, how can we expect you to separate in the NFL, right? And we did see that from a guy like Marvin Harrison this year. Now, how they use him is going to be interesting. You see the yards per route run here. He did have a higher yards per route run against man versus zone, but both actually at a pretty high level here. And then this one's interesting here is his yards per route run in the slot. I think the big question for Tet McMillan when it comes to fantasy production, and we're kind of seeing the NFL has shifted a bit. The guys that a lot of times we need our wide receivers playing in the slot 25, 30% or more of the time. We don't want you as a full-time slot guy, just a pure slot guy, but we want you in the slot in 3 wide receiver sets. In 2 wide receiver sets, there is no slot, but and we want you out there. In 3 wide receiver sets, though, we want you in the slot. We see it with guys like CeeDee Lamb, right, who plays a lot. He's actually plays more in the slot than anywhere else. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they also play in 2 wide receiver sets. There's very few guys that are under 20% in the slot that produce for fantasy football. Jamar Chase was kind of the exception to that rule for all these years. This year, though, he actually played a career high in the slot, 32%, and he was the wide receiver 1. Drake London is another guy. I think his first 2 years in the NFL, he was at 15 and 17% in the slot. This year, he was at 39% in the slot, and we saw his best year. Now, is that only because he played in the slot, or is it because he had a better quarterback? Probably a little bit of both. But, Chris Godwin's another one. Chris Godwin was awesome a couple years ago with Tom Brady. It's because he played a lot in the slot, 60, 70% of the time. And then the last year, he was playing out wide. He did not play in the slot at all, had a horrible year. This year, I know he got hurt, but he was awesome to start the year. He was back to 60% in the slot. So the big question with Tet McMillan is, can he play in the slot? And I think a lot of people are going to see 6'5" and say, no, he's an outside guy. And that's going to maybe scare them away a little bit. But Tet McMillan, to me, does not play like a 6'5" receiver. That, as in our mind, what a 6'5" receiver plays like. He kind of is like a possession receiver, in my opinion, a big possession receiver. he's actually better on kind of in crossing routes, slants and digs and things like that. And the stuff on the outside, he can actually work on a little bit better, and comeback routes and stuff. I think he can work better. So it's kind of interesting to break that down, because I do think a lot of people that don't do their homework here are going to think of Tet McMillan as this contested catch outside guy, and they might be scared off of him a little bit. And I really don't think he's going to be like that. Now, he did play more out wide, but he played a decent amount in the slot. And he was very, very productive in the slot. You see his yards per route run here when he was in the slot. I think he had 36 targets, if I remember correctly, from the slot out of 117 routes run. And he had a 4.48 yards per route run in the slot. I mean, that's insane. Anything over 3 in yards per route run in general is really good. Getting to 4.5 is insane. So he was highly productive when he was in the slot. And so I think he can play in the slot and out wide. And that's going to be very important to me. Now, it is going to depend on who he goes to. I mean, again, we saw it with Drake London, what team he goes to. I mean, we saw it with Drake London. Arthur Smith, Drake London, did not use him in the slot very often, hardly at all. New coaching staff comes in for the Falcons, and they said, no, we are going to use him. So there's different philosophies and offensive styles and things like that. And how often are you in 3 wide receiver sets and other things that come into play? But it will depend a little bit who he goes to. So that is, I guess, a concern for I almost said Drake London. Tet McMillan is like, does he get to the right offense with the right quarterback? Because guys like him, who, if you are going to play only on the outside really and not in the slot, I think you're more dependent on your quarterback than a guy who can kind of move all over the field. I kind of talked about this with Malik Neighbors, that I wasn't as worried about Malik Neighbors going to a team with a bad quarterback as I would have been for like Marvin Harrison or Rome Odunze, because I think the way Malik Neighbors wins, most quarterbacks in the NFL can get him the ball. But those guys on the outside and running outside routes like go routes and stuff, you're generally going to have more tightly contested coverage. So the quarterback has to believe in themselves and their arm to get the ball to you. One thing I also really like about Tet McMillan here is he won at all levels of the field. He was really good, whether it was in the deep, medium, or short. So that's what we want to see. We want to see for all around complete wide receivers, you have to win at all 3 levels. You really do. And he was very productive, almost even production in terms of yards across the board at short, medium, and deep. So overall, I really like Tet McMillan. To me, I do lean towards him being my wide receiver 1, although Luther Burden to me is kind of in the same tier. So if you like Luther Burden, I'm not going to, disagree with you too much here. But to me, Tet McMillan is a really, really intriguing prospect, and I really am interested to see where he goes. Things that I like about him, and I don't want to say I kind of want to give you a range of what are the range of outcomes here. I don't like to say, nope, this guy sucks, I don't like him, or this guy's awesome, I like him. I like to just say here's the range of possibilities. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. When it comes to a guy like Tet McMillan, obviously the size is still ideal. The fact that he plays like a possession receiver, in my opinion, is quite interesting. And just go and watch some of his games, and you just see him winning, not what you would expect, kind of an outside big wide receiver winning. He has a big catch radius, obviously. Doesn't really drop the ball, especially this last year. I think he only had 2 official drops on over 130 targets. The things that I am a little bit worried about, one, I already talked about it. Does he get to the right team that utilizes him and moves him all over the field, or do they see him as an outside guy? His separation, I noticed and that goes back to the contested target stuff. The separation, especially when he was in man coverage, it wasn't quite there. And that does concern me a little bit, is his inability to separate, especially in man coverage. Now, was he productive in man coverage? Yes. But the separation wasn't quite there. And guys in college can get away with kind of being bigger and stronger than everyone. In the NFL, everyone's big, strong, and fast. So I am a little bit concerned about that, is his ability to kind of beat the man coverage a little bit. He seems a little bit I don't want to say clumsy, but his rounding off his routes, especially those comeback routes like hitch routes and things like that. They seem a little like there could be things that are cleaned up a little bit. And then when you kind of watch some of his film, it seems like he does a lot of his production comes on a lot of times when the play kind of breaks down a little bit, which I don't know how much you can rely on that. The play breaking down. I think a lot of that comes from like maybe a lack of separation at times. And so, when the play breaks down and the quarterback extends the play, you get the scramble drill going, and a lot of times receivers can get open because it's hard for cornerbacks to cover those guys. So again, things I like about him, he wins at all levels. To me, he's more of a possession receiver than anything. I also like the fact that when he gets the ball, he has a really good feel when he gets the ball, like of just like where the defender is and like which direction he goes, right? Like if you watch some of his film, you'll see him, run, let's say an in route, and then he knows when to stop and go back the other way, and then the defender is going this way, so they kind of go opposite ways. And I kind of like seeing that type of stuff. I wish I could show you guys like actual film footage. I'm trying to get and see if this is possible for me to show some all 22. If anyone knows in the comments, let me know. But once I find out if I can do that or not, that would be fun to do that with you guys as well. But the man coverage stuff. Yeah, the man coverage stuff is concerning because do teams play more zone? Yes, but there is also a lot of aspects of zone with man coverage. Like you can see people play cover 2, but then the flat outside corner flat is actually manning up against the receiver, so it technically goes down as zone, but it's kind of a hybrid coverage a little bit with aspects of man in it. So overall, I like Tet McMillan. I think he's going to get top 10 draft capital. I really, really want to see him go to a team with a quarterback. And you kind of look at the top 10 here. New England really, really stands out to me. Like of the top 10 guys, maybe even a Carolina, if we believe in Bryce. But I do believe in Drake May a lot. And I think pairing Tet with a really, really good quarterback is really going to help his fantasy value more so than maybe like a Luther Burden, who can maybe go to a not so great situation with a quarterback and still produce. So that's kind of my overall thoughts about Tet McMillan. Again, if you enjoyed the content and you appreciate and you are interested in seeing more of these are going to be coming out every single week, about 2-3 times a week, guys. We're going to be putting out stuff. There's a lot of prospects to go over. And so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And I will catch you all in the next video.